Hello there, my good YouTubers. Bit of a concerning video today. I wanted to sort of make a YouTube video about in regard to some of the recent effects from our new, I won't call it new, but the current effects of the UK government and their decisions and choices that they're making at the moment for how to go about unemployment and how to go about dealing with things here in the UK. There's a lot of things that concern me. I was watching the a YouTube video of Question Time this February, where obviously unemployment was raised, people coming out of university looking for jobs. There isn't enough actual highly paid jobs, you know, for everybody, this, that and the rest of it, and you know, what people are going to do. And I thought maybe I'd share with the world a little bit about what that's sort of more about, what it's all about and what it's like in the real world, because I do think that there's a tremendously large amount of how can I put it, mystery around what it is that's really going on, especially down here for the real people. Now I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed 11 years. Still not a millionaire, and you know, but as I say, it keeps a roof over my head, and you know, it's a struggle. But to give you an idea of what these kind of you know, this kind of monetary system that's in at the moment is implicating what it's doing to people. Why? I mean, I'm firmly convinced that, you know, this is the reason why, and that's basically, I mean, they have a minimum wage monetary system, which for over 21, I think it is, just give me a second, I shall tell you the exact figures so I don't get it wrong. Right, they start at £2.50 as an apprentice rate, £3.64 16 to 17 years of age, then £4.92 between 18 and 20, then £5.93, which is the minimum rate for ages 21 and over. Now, I don't know what planet the government's on when they think that that particular kind of minimum wage is enough to live on. Over the past 10 years, the cost of living has gone up beyond a joke. In fact, beyond, it's not reasonable. The cost of living is ridiculous. The price of things, the property market, the price for rent, the price for electricity, gas, these are ridiculous. The prices have skyrocketed. If you're on a £5.93 minimum wage and you do a standard week of 40 hours, now 40 hours, okay, you might think, well, you know, 40 hours, it's only 40 hours out of a week, and calculate, but most of the time you're spending that sleeping, alright, and 40 hours is a very, very, very large chunk of people's lives. The average week 20-30 years ago was generally around 32 hours. Now they're talking 40 hours, and they put a restriction in place, which a lot of agencies, a lot of companies want to get you to sign away, which is the right to force you to work more than 40 hours a week. If you don't work those 40 hours, that gives them the right to sack you. Now, a legislation was brought in during the 90s, which stopped employers from, if they said, right, you're going to work you're going to work another 5 hours, so 45-hour week instead. And you says, no, I'm only doing the 40 hours, I'm going home, I'm going to spend the rest of the time with the kids, you know, which is a fair comment of any worker or whatever. It's your abided contract. Now, years ago, before this legislation, the employer was saying, oh, if you're not going to work the extra 5 hours, bye-bye, see you later, don't bother coming back into work on Monday morning. He could sack you, bang, just for that. So they brought a legislation in to stop the employers from forcing you to work over 40 hours. Now, if you work 32 hours and he said, oh, can you work, you know, the extra 5 hours, like 38 hours or so on and so forth, then you would and you said no or whatever, then he has the right on that, but he can't force you to work over 40 hours. That was the legislation. They're thinking of removing certain things like this, to remove and uncap these legislations off employers to increase, to reduce the unemployment, to make so more people can get employed. This is bollocks. Okay, that's not going to work. The reason people do not go to work, the reason people cannot, because they can't actually afford to. If they go to work, alright, on a minimum wage, on a 40-hour week, they will come in with a total of £948.80. Now, the income tax levy for your income has been lifted due to the Liberal Democrats, so you've got to earn over £10,000 before you get taxed. Now, that's fine, okay. So you're pretty much going home with £948 deducted, and then your national insurance deducted from that, which is about £12, which is negligible really. But in all fairness, when we're looking at this, it's ridiculous, because £948.80 per month in the UK to live on. You have got to pay your rent, gas, electric, water, food, clothing, and everything else that needs to go with it, including probably a car or anything, because you might need a car to take the kids to school, and you've got mouths to feed. It's virtually impossible in today's day to make those mathematics work. The problem, one of the big problems I've seen a lot with the property market, a lot of people, one of the major things that really gets people back into work is the fact that they can actually they can go to work, and they're paying, instead of paying rent, they're paying to a mortgage. So therefore they're investing in their property that they're living in. Okay, so it's an investment in bricks and mortar. But they can't even do that nowadays, because the banks won't even touch somebody on minimum wage. If you're earning a minimum wage, they won't touch you, because they will be requiring way too much money back. You won't be able to suffice a good living on that. The house prices, property market prices, are just ridiculously high, and everybody wants to keep them high, and it's destroying some of the great values really of lifestyle in the UK. So, and when you're looking at renting, you look at a 3-bedroom, you can go across the net and look at the prices. You're looking anywhere between £500 and £800 for a 3-bedroom house rent. Even non-furnished, unfurnished, sometimes furnished, sometimes unfurnished. Now, you take that as a chunk away from £948 a month. Okay? You really haven't got much left. And when you start looking at approximately £100 to £150 on utility costs, such as gas, electric, water all combined, it's about £100 to £150 you're paying. Especially if you've got a family and you've got 2 kids, wife, whatever, it's £150 a month. That's a big chunk straight away gone. You haven't even seen a penny of it yet. Then you've got to fork out for a car, you've got to fork out for everything else. Where does the money come from? Your council tax, depending on where you are, even in some strange rural sort of areas here in the UK, they still charge £100 near enough a month on council tax alone. No matter what wage limit you're on, they still charge that. So you have to pay that. By the time you finish, you're about £800 you've had to fork out before you've even bought any food, any clothes for your kids, any clothes for your wife, anything. So you're left with about £148 in total out of the entire 948, and that's being generous. And you wonder why people are unemployed. You wonder why people are not going back and work. Now you can call me any name under the sun. You can call this bollocks. You can call it what you will, but the flipping numbers don't call it bollocks. The numbers are facts. You can look it up. £5.93 for anybody over the age of 21. 40-hour week. Why should anybody work more than 40 hours? Like I said at the start of the video, 40 hours is a very, very big chunk out of people's lives. It's a huge amount of hours out of people's lives, and they're spending that in a terrible environment where they're really not particularly going to enjoy it, where they'd rather be spending it at home with their kids, watching their kids grow up, seeing them grow their first new teeth and all the rest of it. But they're spending 40 hours of every week. The rest of it's pretty much a couple of hours a night, and the rest of it's asleep. And you wonder why people are unemployed in the UK. You wonder why people have no incentive to go back to work. They cannot afford to. But what you're going to do, increase the minimum wage? You're saying, oh, well, the minimum wage, this minimum wage, it's causing clamps, and this is one of the reasons why employers won't employ people, such blah, 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 blah. They can't afford on minimum wage. So if you reduce that, you take that away, so they get paid a lesser amount of money, then they ain't going to be able to afford it, so you ain't got an employer anyway. So why do people want the bigger jobs? Why do people want the higher paid jobs? Because they can't live on anything less than. Because the cost of living is too high. Something has got to give. Whether the cost of living goes down somehow, you've got to reduce the inflation somehow. God knows how you're going to do it. I don't know. Or increase the wages, which isn't going to happen, because you increase the wages, you ain't going to have very many businesses being able to afford to pay them, or pay the employers. So what do? Something's got to give. This is the true facts of the matter. These aren't the bullshit political hearsays. These are the true facts of the matter. And yes, there are only so many jobs, on high paid jobs, available. There are only so many £22,000 jobs. There are so many £18,000 jobs. There's only so many £30,000 jobs. Yes, that's correct. And there isn't enough to go around. Hence the reason why there's unemployment. So what you're going to do? I'm very concerned about what this government's ideas are on how to solve this problem, because I've not even heard one of them target these issues. I've not even heard one of them. They've all been talking about lifting the minimum wage. They've been talking about lifting that 40-hour week legislation. They've been talking about lifting all this regulation to protect the worker. That's not going to increase it, because the real issue is they don't have enough money. And the houses that are being built, they're built with no back gardens. And if they have got a back garden, it's a patio. So they can't even grow their own potatoes. They can't even grow their own crop. Kids haven't even got a place to run around in their own back garden now because they're so small. Very clever idea of the construction property developers to think of that one. So, difficult that, isn't it? I mean, even if you look at private renting is costing £500 to £800. You've got property developers who are on £60,000 a year, sometimes £150,000 a year. They can take out a mortgage like clip of your fingers. They take out a mortgage, they buy the place, then they rent it out to you for £750 a month. Well, what's the mortgage cost? Well, £750 a month. Amazing that. So you're paying for a property developer's mortgage, and he's ending up with a property at the end of it, and you're never going to see that money again. And you're having to graft on minimum wage for that. And you wonder why people are unemployed. I really think the government's mind's in the wrong area. Or they do know about this, but they're playing silly buggers. Anyway, enough of my rant, just a little bit of a rant. Let the world know what, you know, there's a little bit of facts down at the bottom. These aren't just my opinion. You know, if I give you my opinion, as I say, I could sit here and tell you my opinion on how they could solve the problem. But I ain't paid for that. That ain't my job. And I'm certainly no political MP or any expert to that. But there's one thing I do know, those are the facts down here at the bottom. I see a lot of my friends, a lot of colleagues who are in exactly that boat, and there's nothing that they can do about it. And the people who are unemployed are actually better off. They can afford to go down on the weekend and buy a beer. Yet we're working our balls off and we can't even afford to go down the pub today because of all of this. And then they went and put 20% tax up, because this ain't just happened this year. So yeah, enough of my rant. Anyway, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, my good YouTubers, and yeah, anybody who wants any nasty comments or whatever, just save your breath, save your typing skills. Food costs money nowadays, so don't waste your energy through your fingers, you know. But if you've got something constructive to say, you've got constructive criticism, by all means, go ahead. Anyway, my good YouTubers, I'll speak to you later. Have a good one and stay safe.